edition of This Day in Black Baseball History, coming to you live with the January 14th, 2026 edition of This Day in Black Baseball History, guys. I am excited to be here tonight and have some great information as always. And just want to thank you, everyone, for joining. I will say that had a surprise yesterday. I gave some facts on Buford Meredith. And he died after being electrocuted in this, what's that? I said Sayrton mines. And just this week, actually this morning, I happened to see that his family had listed uh, a picture of him and also had talked about well, their family and talked about him as a ball player. So I was happy to connect with the family, and that's somebody who another legacy there out there. And man, how many people have Negro League relatives out there? It's just amazing. So anyway, guys, if you're joining me and you're new, by all means, go ahead and leave. How about leave a message, and how about get it a subscription? Just subscribe. We're on our way to 600, trying to build a network here, and just having a great time talking baseball, especially here before February starts and people head off to their spring training in the National and American League. Right now, we've got a little time here where we're almost uninterrupted. Everybody's playing. Even I subscribe to the baseball channel, and they're playing old games and everything. So I'm giving you information. They're giving you information. So anyway, hopefully you're getting your feel of baseball, even though there's not a game being played for much, as we know, where the average fan can get to it. Okay, so let's go and let's get busy talking about baseball history. Let's go to January 14th, 1907. Chester Arthur Brewer, longtime Kansas City Monarchs pitcher, is born in Leavenworth, Kansas. And man, Leavenworth is not that far from me, where I grew up in Wyandotte County, Kansas, which was Kansas City, Kansas. So Leavenworth was pretty close to us. And so we would go to Leavenworth all the time. And in years past, when Chet Brewer would come to visit his relatives in Leavenworth, several times I went down and met him down in Leavenworth. But, I do want to relate one story to you. I remember Chet would come to Kansas City, and he would always set up a hotel in Kansas City, Kansas, and he would invite all his friends to come to his luncheon. So he would have a luncheon, and he provide the food, and instead of him going and trying to meet all the people he knew, he would have them come to him. That was Chet Brewer. So I remember he came in early one year, and he wanted to get a haircut. So I went up to interview him, talk to him, and I always loved talking to Chet. And so he said, "Hey, I need to get a haircut. Where can I go?" And I said, "Hey, I know just the place." And it was a barber, and Dickens probably was 70 years old himself, and he was down on 5th Street in Kansas City, Kansas. So Chet wanted to get a haircut. So Chet hopped in my car, and I took him down to Dickens to get his hair cut. I remember Dickens said, "How you want it cut?" He said, "Just cut it all off." And of course, he already had a bald head, so that was pretty easy to do. And that was Chet Brewer. And Dickens' place was down on 5th Street. Now, what's interesting, moving forward, man, we're talking about 1980, maybe 83, 84 when that happened. Well, last year, it would be last year, they had the election, and the first African American female mayor was elected to Kansas City, Kansas. Now, the place that I took Chet Brewer to get his haircut was Dickens passed away, and his son now owns that property. I think it's his grandson, excuse me, that owns that property. And so when the female mayor gave her reception on the night of the election, she gave her event in the same building where Chet Brewer had gotten his hair cut maybe 30, 40 years before. And of course, there's no barber shop there. And now they have a night spot, and the grandsons turned it into a pretty happening place there in Kansas City, Kansas. So a little history there in that building there, right down on 5th Street. And 5th Street used to be a very viable place amongst the African American community in Kansas City, Kansas. So Fifth Street and Seventh Street and all that area there. So those are the neighborhoods that uh, Bullet Rogan came out of, and Dick Whitworth. You probably heard of those two guys. They were all in that neighborhood growing up there in Kansas City, Kansas. So anyway, Chet Brewer was there too. So just a little bit of that history. So Chet Brewer's birthday is today. Man, he was a fabulous guy and somebody. If you've never had a chance to meet him, believe me, I guarantee you, you would have enjoyed meeting Chet Brewer. So if you're joining me tonight, let me know where you're joining from. That's part of the fun here. Because people are joining from all over the country, and look, you'll be surprised. I've been to some of these places that you're joining from. So here we go. Let me get a drink of water here. Wow. Okay, and then we'll go to the next one. It's going to be from January 14th, 1916. Okay. If you read the newspapers from time to time, like I do, actually, I read them every day, old newspapers, every single day. I'm always seeing some funny story that white baseball players would say about something they saw about a black baseball player. But occasionally you'll find a story that a black baseball player related to something funny he saw in white baseball. And so that's the kind of story I'm going to give you tonight. And this one happened January 14th, 1916, is when Topeka Jack Johnson. Now, I don't know if you know much about Topeka Jack Johnson. He was an outstanding baseball player, about a 6'3", 4-inch second baseman playing at the turn of the century. He also was a heavyweight professional boxer, fought Sam Langford. He fought the other Jack Johnson, the Jack Johnson that most people know, but he was Topeka Jack Johnson. And he said that this is what Jack Johnson said. One of the most amusing incidents that I could remember happened in 1911. And at that particular time, they were trying to set up a series between the Kansas City Blues of the American Association and the Kansas City, Kansas Giants, who had a great season there. So they were setting up this October series. So Johnson went over to meet with Danny Shea. Now, Danny Shea was the manager of the Blues at that time, and Shea invited him into the clubhouse, and the players had played a game against Milwaukee a day before, and man, they just lost miserably, and Shea wasn't too happy about that, and so he was going to talk to them about their play in that particular game at the same time that he had Johnson in the clubhouse. So as the players were getting dressed and everything after the game they had played that day, Shea called everyone over and began scolding them over the bad game that they had played against Milwaukee. And this is what Shea said. He said, "Man, I'm ashamed of the rotten game you played that afternoon. And I want to tell you that we've got to have harmony on this club." I said, "You men have got to work together more. And that's all there is to it. With harmony on this club, we can win a majority of our games and we will win the pennant. But without harmony, we can't do anything, and we'll probably finish way down on the list at the end of the season." So anyway, after the lecture, Shea left the room, and Johnson's still there, and he heard a recruit say to the other one, now this recruit had been listening to every word that Shea was saying and listening very closely. And so Shea now has left the dressing room, and Johnson heard the recruit say, "Hey, who in the Sam hell is this Harmony guy they're talking about? And what position does he play? Is he an outfielder or something?" He thought Harmony was a real person, and Jack Johnson used to relate that story from time to time in newspapers because he had never heard of somebody who didn't know that what Harmony was, and they thought it was a person. So anyway, that's a story Jack Johnson used to relate, and it appeared in the newspapers, and I saw it appear again on January 14th and 15th. So I thought I'd tell you that story. All right. So we're going to keep on going. All right. So once again, if you're joining me, let me know what city you're joining from. That's part of the fun, guys. If we can't have fun, what can we be doing, right? And guess what? Baseball is fun. And I am one of the people who believe that I can give you all of these stats. I can give you stats forever. But baseball is a lot more fun when you're giving stats with stories. And so I will give you a little bit mix of both, all right? So somebody says the Philly suburbs, all right. Let's see. You're close to Camden, right? So you ever go over to Camden? I'm from the Midwest, but I have written several books on the Philadelphia Giants. I'm working on a updated version of the 1905-1906 team right now, and they played quite a few games there in Camden, right, as well as Philadelphia as well. So yeah, so the Philadelphia suburbs. Don't know that much about the suburbs of Philadelphia, but I do know that one of my favorite players played there for a while, and that was Dick Allen. And I started following him when he was Richie Allen. And later on, I talked to Dick and I said, well, why did you change your name from Richie to Dick? And he said, because my mother never called me Richie. My mother didn't call me Richie. I want to be called what my mother called me. And his mother called him Dick Allen, not Richie Allen. And I think they were trying to make him a miniature version of a Richie Ashburn or something. But anyway, he didn't like it. But he's one of my favorite players, and he comes from he played actually he doesn't he comes from Wapham, Pennsylvania, but he actually played for the Phillies for the early part of his career. Now I see somebody's from Canada. All right, I've been to Canada before too. I was in the Saskatchewan province. I was at Regina, Saskatoon, Escavan, Moose Jaw. I came out through Minot, North Dakota. So I don't know where you are in Canada, but I hope to come back because I was well received in Canada. I have a wonderful live performance that I do that is totally unique with poetry. And, I usually bring my trumpet along and we have a good time. I tell stories that you typically have never heard here. And poems, I've never done a bit of poetry on my broadcast here, but in person, I do a lot of it. So, okay. So, all right, let's keep it going here. We're going to go to January 14, 1948. And that was the day that George Carr, he was a famous first baseman for several teams. Um, but anyway, he was out from the West Coast and he died. And his death place is officially listed as McPherson, Kansas. Now, he lived in Los Angeles, but the reason they titled McPherson is his death place is because he worked on the train and he passed away on the train. And where they take you off is where they give you as your place of death. And they took him off in McPherson, Kansas. And so that's why George Carr death place is McPherson. The same thing happened to oh shucks, I'm gonna call his name right now. Um, he was a great player, and he was coming back from spring training, and I think he passed away somewhere in Missouri, down in what I call Rush Limbaugh country, right? And so his day, even though he lived in Chicago, the Missouri is his death place. All right, so it does happen. It does happen. So that was George Carr. Now, what's interesting about McPherson, Kansas, I've been there before, and I'll tell you this. You remember, you probably heard this about Satchel Paige winning the National Baseball Congress tournament in 1935. Well, he was with Bismarck, but before Bismarck left to return back to Bismarck, which Satchel Paige did not return with them, he exited them and joined the Kansas City Monarchs, where he finished the season. However, they, as a unit, the Bismarck team stopped over in McPherson, Kansas, and played a game. And that was one of those games where Satchel Paige called in the outfielders and struck out the side. That was in McPherson, Kansas, 1935. So he really did that and is well documented. And I've been to McPherson to tell them these wonderful stories about their town that most of them never knew. All right, unless you're one of those oldsters, and most of those guys have passed away. So it's me coming to tell you. And by the way, the guy I could not think of who died in Missouri was oh shucks, I had his name in my head and it just went away again. I'll call him because his brother was also a trainer with the White Sox. Buckner, Harry Buckner. That's what I want to say. So anyway, we're going to keep on going. And don't just remember here that January 14, 1987, Billy Williams, the great Cubs, is elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, I've met a lot of people from the Cubs and different Hall of Famers. But believe it or not, I've never met Billy Williams. I don't know if I've ever even been in the room with him. So anyway, that was Billy Williams, an outstanding baseball player from Whistler, Alabama. You know, the round around the Mobile, Alabama area, man, they had some good ball players come out of there. I want to say that from the Negro Leagues, of course, you know, you had Satchel Paige, who's certainly a legend. And I know from Whistler, there was a guy named Bobby Robinson, who was also from Whistler, Alabama. And of course, Hank Aaron from Mobile, Tommy Agee from that area. If I'm correct, I think Ozzie Smith might be from that area as well. I could be wrong on that one, but we certainly know that Billy Williams is from that area. Willie McCovey, another one from that area there in Mobile. I've been to Mobile. I've never presented in Mobile, but I've been there. Actually, I went to Mobile as a musician back in the 1970s. We were traveling on the Chitlin Circuit, and we played down in Mobile, Alabama. At that particular time, man, they had some good bands down south, and we came in from Kansas City, and Chocolate Milk was. They were in New Orleans, and they were hitting. And there was actually another great movie. Actually, I heard two great bands down there. One was named Putin Nanny. They were great. They were around. Where were they? Where were they at? I'm trying to think of the city that they were in because we were around Gulfport, Pascagoula, in that area there, and we went from New Orleans on into Mobile, and boy, I'm gonna call the name of that city. It was a little city right there on the coast that they would play at. And there was another group called Piranha that was outstanding. They were all around Mobile, and we used to go and hear them play quite a bit. They were pretty good too. So, hey, but a lot of good music back then, and a lot of places to play. And guys, everything was about live music, and we were able to travel around. So, anyway, I'm trying to get back to baseball. I don't went somewhere off in the outer space here. Let's see. Greetings, Phil. How are you? From the Twin Cities. All right, met Frank White. Okay, you know, I've never met that particular Frank White. Now, I know Frank White, the baseball player, but we're talking about Frank White, the author. No, I've never had a chance to meet him. So hopefully I'll get up to Minnesota again. Over the years, I've presented in St. Cloud. I've been in the Twin Cities before. I was in, believe it or not, Pipeston, Minnesota. How about that? Spoke there. So I've been around Minnesota, but not lately. So hopefully I'll get back. I know one thing. I never want to come to Minnesota this time of year. That's for sure. So invite me if you know somebody who's looking for a good speaker and they're giving a good program. Make sure they invite me about June or July. I can handle that. All right. So I'm going to give you one more, and then we'll jump out of here tonight. I do want to thank everyone for joining. It's always my pleasure to talk baseball. And remember, guys, subscribe. Subscribe. That's the thing that's keeping me alive right now is people subscribing, because the more subscriptions I have, that gets me excited. The more people pop in here nightly, that gets me excited. And so, hey, I just try to find more and more interesting things to tell you, especially if you love baseball and you're interested in the Negro Leagues. You're going to get some things here. And I mix things in. You know, you might hear me give quotes from white players and Hispanic players and African American players, but I'm going to give you as much baseball as I can. And, you know, and once again, I don't spend a lot of time giving many statistics, because some people who join, they're not really baseball fans. They just want to hear good stories. They like baseball, but they don't like it that much, where they want to hear a bunch of numbers, right? So sometimes I don't give them. And I always think about what Toby Harris always said. Toby Harris said that statistics are like a lady in a bikini. He said it shows a lot, but it doesn't show everything. And so you've got to tell the rest of the story and the rest of the history right along with the numbers, or you're not showing very much, all right? So anyway, yeah, we're going to go. And this one, this last one, you're going to like. You're going to like this one, all right? So this is January 14th, 1972, and some of you guys were probably born during this time, right? I know I was. I was a couple of years of getting out of high school, all right? So Satchel Paige was honored as the native son of Alabama, and it was the first time in an event that took place in Birmingham that Satchel Paige got honored in Alabama. Now, this guy, don't with me, you got to think about this 1972. This guy has been playing since 1926. And he finally, in 1972, they found a way to recognize him. And thank you, St. Louis. I'm going to mention something for St. Louis when I finish here. Matter of fact, Satchel Paige played for the St. Louis Browns. How about that? So anyway, so he goes down to Birmingham, Alabama, and he receives, actually, how about this? Governor George Wallace presenting him with the plaque. How about that one? And comedian Bob Hope told jokes to the crowd of 3,400 people. That's a big crowd. And this was a pretty big event that he was invited to. Also in attendance were Kurt Gowdy. I know you know about Kurt Gowdy. Coach Bear Bryant of Alabama and Ralph Jordan of Auburn, two football coaches. Tennis great Pancho Gonzalez. And then how about racing brothers Bobby and Donnie Allison? They were there. And the 1971 Heisman Trophy winner, Pat Sullivan. Man, does anybody remember Pat Sullivan, or is it just me? I remember he won the Heisman Trophy. I think that's the last time I heard of him. So anyway, so Pat Sullivan was there. He was a big thing. He was a big deal in 72, right? So anyway, it was a night of entertainment. And I would say that Bob Hope said, a page, he said, he's so old, he played for Cleveland when there really were Indians there. How about that? And that was Bob Hope, one of his jokes he told that night. And if you ever followed any of Bob Hope's humor, you'll find some interesting. I tell you what, if you really want to find some interesting things on Bob Hope, you have to go through, because he used to do the All-American football team. It would be a special every year, and then a player would come out and he would say something funny. You know, the guy would come out and say, "I'm so and so from so and so," and then Bob Hope would go give you a almost a one-liner or two-liner. Man, it was great. We used to watch that. We couldn't wait for that to come on every year, because a lot of times you didn't see these football players quite the way we see them today. And even when you watch the game, it was almost like they were off in the distance, but now the camera is right here, right? So you were happy to see these guys, and then for the first time, you were hearing some of these guys' voices. You never heard their voices, and these were the All-Americans for that year. Man, I tell you, you have to go listen to one of those segments if you really want to be entertained. If you've never done that, guys, I think you would find that fascinating. So that kind of does it for me tonight. I used to try to get out here 20 minutes. I'm over my allotted time today, and so I do want to thank you for joining. I do want to thank everyone who's been subscribing and hanging in here with me during this. I guess I came on in July, and some people have stayed with me all the way and sending me messages and encouragement. And guys, I appreciate all of that. And I really want to thank you, because I couldn't do this without you. And all of the history that I've been doing over these years, guys, believe me, I just don't write it for me. I write it for you. And I write it to keep these men's legacies alive. That was my way as a youth. I wanted to move the needle forward from where it had been all my life. And I started probably about maybe seriously about when I was age 23. And so here we go, 40 years later, I'm still out here, can still celebrate. So guys, I want to thank you. I'm going to have to cut this off tonight. I hate to do it, because I know some of you probably would like to stay a little bit, but I appreciate your support. Believe me, my hat is tipped to you guys, all right? So anyway, thank you, and we will do some things tomorrow. And I'm looking, man, every day, I've always got something interesting every day. It's just amazing how much interesting and new and fresh information is out there. And I know when I was growing up, I kept hearing the same old baseball stories all the time. And one of these times, I'm going to give you my top 10 of overused baseball stories, right? These are the stories that we kept hearing over and over and over again until we just got burned out on them, and we needed to hear some new information, right? All right, so this is Phil Dixon, and this has been today's edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. Of course, this is the January 14th edition, And I see Will Clark just joined me. Thank you, Will. Will's been a great supporter. I appreciate that. And guys, thanks for hanging in here. That's all I can say. I appreciate that. And if you're ever in Kansas City, and you're going to visit the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, guys. If I'm in town and I can come down, I'll be happy to give you a tour. Just make a note of that. And if I can do it, I will. All right. So thank you and have a nice evening. And we will be in contact real soon. And everybody, have a wonderful day.